All right, guys, we have the engine removed out of the Blue WJ. This is the 4.7 liter standard output. The engine is out. That was a pain in the butt. I couldn't get the torque converter to stay in. I had to take it out with the engine, which was fantastic. So we've got it sitting over here on top of the Titan's old spare tire. Seems like a fitting spot for it. I think it's actually resting on the oil pan, but this is the junk one. We don't care a whole lot. So we have that. We use the Pittsburgh engine hoist, and now we're gonna put the new engine, on the stupid Harbor Freight stand. Hopefully it works. So the new engine, when I say new, I mean it's got 132,000 miles, is right here on the trailer. I just got it rigged up. It looks like when the junkyard pulled the engine, they stripped this hole quite a bit, so I'm really hoping that we can pick it up without dropping it. Because if we drop it, that would be a real bummer. And of course we got hardware. So the idea here is if that bolt is stripped and we can barely hold on, I want to have the stand ready so we can throw it on the stand, because then we should be a little bit more secure, theoretically. That's the hope. But yeah, let's get started. See if we can even reach this dang thing. We're just gonna start picking it up and see how it goes. Well, apparently I bought the wrong thread pitch. So we're gonna have to set this down on the ground in the garage, and we're gonna have to use the sketchy system to get it there. Yay. We'll get this to the lowest center of gravity we can. We'll go that way. Just in case something breaks and falls off. It's not a huge long drop. Well, the new engine's in the garage out of the weather. That's progress. Still have zero idea if it works. So my next door neighbor, before he moved out and the new neighbor moved in, left some junk in the backyard, and there's some old tires. I'm gonna go grab those old tires, stack them up, and see if I can set this down just like that one, just to keep it in some padding, till I can get some bolts that actually thread into the stupid thing. So I'll be right back. There's one. All right, and there's two. Okay, all the weight is on the tires right there, see? Nice. Not the way I would prefer to do it, but it's gonna work. Good morning, welcome to another video with a guy and his projects. You guys aren't my projects. Sometimes I do that, I don't know why. So where we left off on the last one, I don't know, because I kind of stopped filming because I was kind of getting a little frustrated and a little anxious to get this engine out. Not this one, that one. So I don't know where we left off, so let me just give you a brief, real quick summary. So down here is where the engine used to be. You'll notice that the torque converter did not come out because the engine was seized, so I couldn't spin it to get the bolts. So I ended up taking the torque converter with the engine. This is where the new one needs to go. This is the old engine with about 260,000 miles on it, allegedly. I don't really know. I got to get the torque converter off still with the flywheel flex plate, whatever it's called. I didn't realize I couldn't buy a new gasket here, so that one's a bit destroyed. We're going to end up having to hammer that out a little bit. Most of these pulleys are kind of toast. They all spin, but they all, except the water pump, pretty much have some grinding noise. The power steering pump I'm planning on reusing on the new engine, and this crankshaft pulley I want to try and remove and put on the new engine. This new engine has 132,000 miles out of a T-boned Grand Cherokee, so hopefully it should fit just perfect. Hopefully it runs. They put a sticker on here saying that it runs great. Let's hope it runs great. So this is the new engine, 132,000 miles out of a 2002 Grand Cherokee, which is the same as this. It's a standard output, so is this, so this should work out just fine. It looks like it's been sitting for a long time. This came from Michigan. I had them ship it to me. What we're gonna do today, we're gonna replace We're gonna replace this tensioner because that's got bearing noise. That has no movement really. Power steering pump actually feels good, but I bought a new one anyway. And like I said, the crankshaft pulley, we're gonna steal from the old engine, and the power steering pump, we're gonna steal from the old engine. What else are we stealing? So headers, these headers I think look okay. I'm gonna go ahead and pull them all off anyway, get rid of these heat shields because they're trashed and gonna rattle. I'm gonna get rid of these heat shields, pull out all the old hardware. I'm assuming they're gonna break off and gonna be a pain in the butt, but I'd rather do that now than later. So I've got new gasket, new hardware. I'm gonna get these outfitted nice so that if they ever cause problems in the future, it's only a little bit old and not a lot of bit old. We're obviously going to have to replace everything they just cut off. So your crankshaft pulley, your camshaft pulley, crankshaft sensor, camshaft sensor, and all these other sensors. These motor mounts are pretty much toast, so those are going to be replaced. All the electrical. This oil pan actually looks pretty good. It's been replaced previously because it's a Spectra. So it is not original, and you can see this blue gasket here. So this has been replaced originally. I don't know if it still leaks. I don't know why they replaced it. I don't know when they replaced it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that off, replace the gasket, replace the pan. I bought a Dorman with a Velcro gasket, and hopefully that does us right. So that's about the gist of what we're doing today. We're also gonna take off all this upper hardware, get rid of the intake plenum and all that stuff, because in order to get the top passenger side bell housing bolt, I had to take all that to get to that bolt. I could not get to that stupid little friggin' bolt. I got everything else disconnected on the engine, everything. The whole engine was disconnected, but that top passenger side bell housing bolt I could not get to. So I ended up having to take all this stuff off on that. So we're just gonna go ahead and preventively do that on this. Sometimes going the extra mile and doing the extra thing is way easier in the long run than trying to squish it. So we're gonna just take it off and be done with it. We've got this electrical we'll probably replace, kind of have to. So the catalytic converters. Catalytic converters I was planning on reusing from the blue Jeep, the original Jeep, and it turns out that they are trash, they're garbage, they're all broken up inside. So I'm assuming you guys have seen the introduction to the other Jeep video. So I've got this Jeep, I got the brown WJ with the 4-inch lift, and then I've got another brown WJ that's the donor WJ. So I'm gonna take, it's also got a bad engine. I bought that with the purpose of taking that engine to put it in here, but the guy freaking lied to me. It is a bad engine. So now I got two WJs with bad engines. So the other WJ is now my parts Jeep. I'm gonna take the cats off that and put them on this. So that's the plan there. So the cats are taken care of. Other than that, we have the alternator, which the previous owner told me is a brand spanking new remanufactured alternator, so we'll try that. The AC compressor, we're gonna try reusing. That was empty when I bought the Jeep. I don't know if it's good or not. We'll just throw it in there. That's one of those ones that's easy enough to replace if need be later, so I'm not too worried about it if it don't work. If the pulley spins, I'm happy. I am making an assumption that the starter was good on this Jeep. That's the plan for today. We're gonna get all that swapped out and ideally have this ready to drop in next weekend. So this is my hobby. I video because I enjoy playing with the vehicles and I can't afford to do it. So I video it for the funds to play with it. So this is not my job, this is my hobby. Yeah, I only got 1, maybe 2 days. Some weeks I got 2 days to play with it. Most weeks I have 1 day to play with it. So yeah, it takes a little while, but hopefully we'll have this all stripped, reassembled, ready to go in. I got new spark plugs as well, new valve cover gaskets. I don't know if I'm gonna go that far. Now, those are easy enough to do once it's in it, and I'm really just wanna get it in and make sure it runs before I play and put too much more time and effort into it. But yes, it would be way easier to do right now, so I'll probably do it right now. Anywho, that's what we're doing. Stick around, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, hit the share button, leave a comment, and hang tight. We're gonna get started. So I rolled the engine upside down, or mostly upside down, and figured I would tackle the oil pan first. To do this, I just took out the 500,000 different little bolts holding on the oil pan. I just used this 90-degree impact, works out great. As you can see here on this pan, the paint was actually peeling up on the inside of the pan. That is not good. It was only a matter of time before it started to disintegrate and flow through the engine. So I'm actually really glad I decided to go ahead and replace the pan. That's the gasket we just removed in the oil pickup tube, and now we're going to go ahead and just clean things up. Grab your O-ring from the pickup tube area. We're going to replace that here in a moment. Alright, so we had a little malfunction off camera. So the oil pickup tube gasket, I didn't buy one, and apparently nobody has one in the planet, and you have to wait for one to come in online. So I did some peelings. So I have an assortment of gaskets, and I found one, and it fits perfect. It fits in there. The problem was when I tried to pull it back out when I was test fitting, I dropped it up in there. So I just rotated the engine over so it would fall out. Worked fabulously, made a little mess. But this does fit perfect on the pickup tube. So we're gonna go ahead and take this one off, utilize this one. It's a little bit more round, but I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I really hope it's not gonna be a problem. It's a little bit thicker, but not much. So it does fit in there. Hopefully it doesn't cause problems. I want to go ahead and slide this on here right now. I could just reuse the old one. This one, hold on. Let me get that on. There we go. I could just reuse this one. It's actually still really flexible. And actually, you know what? I'm tempted to use it. Just because this one is a little bit bigger, but we're gonna fit that in there. If it fits, we'll use that one. If not, we'll go back to this one because this is a little bit thinner. But anywho, let me do that. All right, so we are getting the oil pickup tube back in place. Make sure you get those bolts all nice and snug. And then we're gonna go ahead and put our pan in place here soon and hand tighten all of the bolts in. Make sure that your gasket's lined up. After that, I got on the Googler and figured out how much inch pounds the people that say they know stuff think it should be tightened down to, and I went with that and got all of these done in a nice sequential manner so there's nice even pressure on the gasket from the pan. Alright, so going from there, I went to the crankshaft position sensor, and holy smokes, this ended up breaking in half inside the hole, and we spent a lot of time playing with it. So this is where our crankshaft position sensor goes. That is completely demolished. We're gonna have to drill it out. I'm not sure how that's gonna work right now, but we're gonna have to figure out how to drill that out to get that extracted. Wish me luck. And yes, I absolutely needed that luck. I had no idea what I was doing here. I was just trying to do whatever I had to do to get this out. Originally, I drilled a hole, then I stuck a screw in it, tried to pull it out with the screw, and some washers and a hammer and a pry bar. Tried that, put some lube in there, let it set, and it just wasn't quite working out. Just pulled the screw right back out, which was a pain in the butt. Drilled it a little deeper, put the screw back in, and actually felt like I was making progress. Whether I was or not, I don't know, but I felt like I was. And I just kept at it. If you're doing this in your engine bay, it's going to be much, much harder because you don't have room. I did that in the brown Jeep off video a while back when I first bought it. So I moved to a lag screw because that Tapcon just wasn't quite gripping enough, so I got a lag screw, got in there, and I broke off some more, got a little bit more out, grabbed a bigger screw bit. Alright guys, through the course of playing with this, I've pretty much completely destroyed it now, but I've got it to where it'll spin. So, not that I can grab it to spin it with, but I'm hoping I'm at a point now. I think you can see. I don't know, can you see? Are you blurry? You get stuff on you? So I got it to a point where I can wiggle it around in there. I just can't grab a hold of it to pull it out. So I took my die grinder and I kind of ground the sidewalls of here a little bit. I don't do too much because I want the new one to seal. Well, I just gotta be able to grab it somehow to pull it out. That's where I'm at right now. Alright, so there's a possibility that we are actually getting somewhere now. So we got this to where it can spin, right? And I drilled another drywall screw in there. We hollowed out the outside, so hopefully there's less resistance. And I'm just taking a hammer, and you got in my way. And I already got it up a good ½ inch, so just gonna keep on doing that. Oh lordy, we got it out. And there she be. Wow, that was rough. She did not want to come out there. All right, so now we got a big mess we need to clean up before we get too carried away. All this crap needs to come out and not in. I'm gonna grab the shop vac and see if that helped me enough. All right, so I just grabbed a little magnet to try and get any metal that might be hanging around the edge, and then grabbed my vacuum, tried to pick up any loose crap, and then I grabbed some needle nose pliers and some other things, and just trying to get that plastic out. That plastic in there is from the crankshaft position sensor, and it's got to come out. Couldn't get it to budge, so I grabbed a heat gun, put a lot of heat on it for a long time, and that softened up the plastic enough that I was able to get in there with a 90-degree pick, which is actually for a cotter pin removal tool, and I was actually able to break this. It might work here in a minute. Oh shoot. Oh, I got half of it out. That's not quite what I was going for. So now we gotta be very careful about not letting it go the rest of the way in. There's the other half. Woo! All right. Progress, baby. Thank you. All right, so we got a new crankshaft and a new camshaft position sensor. This sensor, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's a pain in the butt to get to once this engine's installed. So we're just gonna go ahead and pull it out and put the new one in and just be done with it, because I don't wanna have to do this again later. We have now graduated, moved on to the exhaust manifold, headers, whatever you wanna call them. I fully expected a lot of this hardware to break on me and be a pain in the butt, and it actually all came off pretty easy. So I grabbed my ratchet to break them by hand. I like to break things loose by hand only so I can feel it. When you just jump on it with the impact, yeah, it's easier, I get it, it's faster, but you just don't have that same intimate feeling to know when something's going to go wrong. The gasket came off in multiple pieces, not a big deal. I grabbed my new hardware, my new gasket, and just started putting things back in place. Everything looked good, the header looked good, nothing too exciting. So the studs, their studs went in certain places that bolts didn't to hold the heat shields on. I'm not putting the heat shields back on, so I didn't worry about it too much. I just kind of put them back in wherever they happen to fall in place. Don't forget, Google is your friend, so is YouTube, but I went online to figure out torque specs, figured that out, and I torqued them down to manufacturer specifications right here so that nobody yells at me that I didn't torque them down. Now you guys will just yell at me that I didn't tell you what I torqued them down to. I did buy a new tensioner, so here I get in there and I start removing the tensioner. I had a little bit of a problem with a strip bolt there. As you can see, I just grabbed a 12-point socket, hammered it on, and it actually worked very well. Grabbed my impact, which stripped it out more, and hammered it back on, and then there we go, finally got it off. So yes, I'm going to put a new bolt on with the new tensioner. I did clean up the backing a little bit because it was a little bit rough, a little corrosion there, and I did put some anti-seize on that bolt as well. Hopefully I never have to pull this back off again, but if I do, hopefully, theoretically, it should be easy now. So after I started to put that tensioner on, I realized that the water pump bolts go behind the tensioner, so I took it back off and decided to tackle the water pump next, because yes, I bought a new water pump as well because the pulley was pretty much kind of a little bit rough. So took out all of the tensioner bolts. There's two different sized heads. You'll figure that out when you get there. And the new gasket, or the new water pump, came with a new gasket and all that stuff. Here I'm just scraping away the old gasket, putting the new one on the new water pump, and then we're going to just put her back in place, screw her back on. Nothing overly exciting. It's actually really easy. It's really nice to do things when it's not in the engine. I'm not afraid to do things in the engine. Pretty much everything I've ever done has been inside the engine. I'm just taking opportunity of this being outside of the engine to put it in. This whole time and all this money I've spent on these parts, I'm a little bit stressed in the back of my mind that this engine's not even going to run, because at this point I have no idea if it's going to run or not. I'm just going off of the junkyard telling me it was a, quote, good runner, end quote. And so yeah, and I don't even know when they decided that was, how long it sat in the yard after, how many rainstorms it went through. I have no idea. So here you can see me using my smartphone to Google my torque specs, and that's what I said. Google them up, figure out what you want to do. I don't necessarily know that Google's right. I just, Googled it and went with it, and everything worked out. You'll find multiple sources of information everywhere. Refer to your service manual if in doubt. Alright, now that the water pump's replaced, we're going to go ahead and put the tensioner on. Again, these are all anti-seize bolts for next time. Alright, to get the crankshaft pulley off, the crank pulley or harmonic balancer, I used a couple of monkey wrenches on my removal tool because my removal tool just didn't quite span the distance quite well. So a couple monkey wrenches solved that problem, and I did not buy a new one. I am using the one off of the old engine, mainly because I didn't even think about ordering one in the old one. The one that came on the donor engine was cracked and chipped and broken, and the one on the old engine actually looked pretty decent. So I just used a socket here, a large socket, to hammer it down in place, and yeah, all was good. I kind of just eyeballed the line up with the belt to make sure it was correctly in place, and then the zipper-dee-doo-dah her back in. And again, I've never done half of this stuff before, so don't think I'm a pro, don't think I know what I'm doing. I'm just making it up as I go. Alright, so power steering, reservoir, and pump. Well, it's actually not the pump. Anyway, pump, whatever. I put this on. I end up taking it back off later during the engine install process, so you probably don't need to put it on now. Alright, we move into the following day, and I got some valve cover gaskets. I replaced the gaskets under the valve covers as well as the rings where the bolts go in. And now we're going to go ahead and throw in some new spark plugs as well. I'm using the OEM style copper ones. I'm going to replace all 8 of them just because the engine's out. The old ones actually didn't look all that bad, but the engine's out. It's super easy right now. Let's say this engine does fire up. It'd be so much nicer to just be able to start running it and not have to worry about doing other maintenance. So new spark plugs going in, and I think that's a valid, good decision. I didn't spend a lot of money. I mean, they're the older style copper plugs, Champions, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and replace all those. Notice I have the blue towels covering all the open holes so you don't actually drop anything down there, because that would really kind of ruin your day if your day wasn't bad yet. Again, get your torque recommendations from your Google machine or your service manual and torque all of them down to spec. I don't torque everything. I try to in videos for you guys, but spark plugs is one of those things that I always torque because I have a tendency to not go hard enough or tight enough because I'm scared. Alright, took this flywheel, flex plate, whatever the heck you want to call it. I don't know what it actually is. It's one of the two. Loctited these bolts and snug those in. And I think we're ready for install, guys. Remember, if you like what you see, leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, check out my other videos. There's a whole playlist on this Jeep, other Jeeps, trucks, cars, vans, all that stuff. I've got a lot of videos on YouTube now and more coming all the time. I got the whole project left to go on this Jeep, and then more Jeeps after that. So stick around, hang out, thumbs up, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Adios.